We start Fox 13 News live at 5 with breaking news this evening. President Donald Trump is now at Walter Reed Medical Center to be treated for COVID-19. He was flown to the hospital just within the last hour. The White House says the president will work out of the offices there in the hospital out of an abundance of caution. You see him making the walk right there from the White House to Marine One. This after he and First Lady Melania Trump both tested positive for the virus. The diagnosis comes 3 days after the first presidential debate when White House aide Hope Hicks showed symptoms on board Air Force One and then tested positive yesterday morning.
Back here at home, we saw another day of more than 1,100 new COVID-19 cases. But the big headline is the number of deaths. The Utah Health Department says 15 more people in Utah have lost their lives to the virus. That is the most reported in a single day so far. Amy?
Those deaths were in Davis, Salt Lake, San Pete, Tooele, Utah, Washington, and Weber counties, Bob. But there is more to the story than just those numbers.
Fox 13's Spencer Joseph spoke with the state's chief medical examiner today and joins us live now from Taylorsville with more on how these numbers are being reported. Spencer.
Yeah, and not every single one of these cases was a death that was recent. In fact, the single highest death day in Utah still remains on July 23rd at 9 deaths. Some of these are from other months, including July and August, that the medical examiner has just finished their investigations on and ruled that they were COVID deaths. So of those 15, there are 2 that were from July, 2 that were from August. The other 11 were from the past 10 days, and 8 of those were from the last week. So while this isn't an increase and maybe not quite as scary as that 15 number seems, I spoke with the medical examiner who says these numbers are climbing again, and he's very worried about it.
There's no question we've seen some pretty significant increase in the last few days. You know, the majority of these cases happen in the last week, were deaths of the last week, many of them within the last 3 days. And so that is I think it does represent a real increase, but not, I guess, overly surprising, I guess I would say, given, where we've seen cases go.
Dr. Christensen says that his staff has been working around the clock with increases in COVID deaths because they still have to process the paperwork for every single one of those. Now, coming up on Fox 13 News at 9, we'll tell you a little bit more about how the state medical examiner goes through a COVID autopsy and rules that a specific COVID-related death, and then how those numbers are reported. Live in Taylorsville, Spencer Joseph, Fox 13 News, Utah.
We hope for the best for our President and First Lady and for Senator Lee, that they are okay.
That's Representative Ben McAdams sending out his well wishes. Utah Senator Mike Lee has also tested positive for COVID-19 after President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump tested positive overnight.
Senator Lee was in contact with President Trump earlier this week. Fox 13's Elle Thomas reports on Senator Lee's condition and the well wishes he's receiving from Utah lawmakers.
Lots of comments and kind words flooding in on Twitter today from thousands of people across Utah and across the country, many of which saying this goes to show just how severe the virus is.
Tweets of support came in from Utah heavyweights Friday morning following an announcement of yet another case of COVID-19, this time impacting Utah State Senator Mike Lee.
Wish them the best and want them to know that my thoughts and my family's thoughts and our prayers are with them.
The Utah senator made the announcement via Twitter Friday morning, saying in part he'd been experiencing symptoms consistent with long-time allergies and, out of an abundance of caution, got tested. Lee had been in contact with President Trump earlier this week, the president announcing his positive diagnosis overnight. Senator Lee continued, saying he had tested negative while at the White House. However, this one was positive. During his visit to the executive mansion, Lee was also in contact with President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, and fellow Utah Senator Mitt Romney. A White House spokesperson told Fox News Judge Barrett tested negative for the virus this morning. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Senator Romney told Fox 13 he had not been tested because there was no known risk of exposure. However, they were monitoring. Still, as well wishes continue to come in, Other state leaders say this is a reminder of the volatility this virus brings to the table.
The virus is still with us. We still need to be careful. We need to follow the recommendations of our governor and our public health officials. Do everything that they're advising us to do, because this is still serious. It's still with us, and people are still at risk.
In the tweet, Senator Lee says he'll be in isolation for 10 days. He also says he's already assured his colleagues that he'll be back to work just in time to help push forward the Supreme Court nomination of Judge Barrett. Fox 13 did reach out to Senator Lee's office for an update on his condition. So far, haven't heard back. In Salt Lake City, El Thomas, Fox 13 News, Utah.
With the President, the First Lady, and Senator Lee all testing positive, we wanted to know how differences in age change the outcome of an infection. Fox 13's Max Roth joins us now from the newsroom with an in-depth look. Max.
Yeah, Bob, COVID-19 is new. It's unpredictable. And so it would be irresponsible to suggest we know what will happen with either the president or the senator. What we can do is describe exactly what outcomes we've seen in Utah for men between 45 and 64, like Senator Lee, and men between 65 and 84, like President Trump.
Each blue figure in this story represents a Utahn infected with COVID-19. 1 in 5 Utahns close to President Donald Trump's age, which is 74, have been hospitalized after testing positive. For those in Senator Mike Lee's age range, he's 49, 1 in 12 have been hospitalized. Looking at mortality, for Utahns near the president's age with COVID, 1 in 22 are killed by the virus. The numbers for Senator Lee's age group, COVID kills 1 out of 157. Barely over half of hospitalized Utahns have been men. The average age, male or female, is 53 and a half. 54% had a pre-existing condition that may have contributed to COVID's toll. But when it comes to deaths, the numbers skew towards men, 61%. They skew older, average age of 73, and towards people with pre-existing conditions, 78%.
So, as I mentioned, COVID is unpredictable. There are lots of exceptions to all of these averages. If the averages just were always followed, the president would be in a lot more danger than Senator Lee. But we saw Congressman Ben McAdams just a minute ago, and he is a young, fit person, but he spent a week in the hospital. And the governor of Missouri, Mike Parson, is 65. He's close to the president's age, or at least closer. And he had the virus with no symptoms, and he just went back to work after 2 weeks. Live in the newsroom, Max Roth, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Thank you so much, Max. Right now, the vice presidential debate scheduled for next Wednesday on the University of Utah campus is still on. University officials have already dealt with multiple changes due to the COVID-19 pandemic and say that they are ready for whatever else may come their way.
Everyone inside of a building on campus, especially the debate hall itself and media filing tent, masks are required, social distancing is required. We've spaced out media, more distance than we normally would, and just asking everyone to follow the fall guidelines the university's already been following.
There will be 250 or fewer journalists allowed to cover the event in person. There will also only be 50 to 80 students allowed to see the debate inside Kingsbury Hall. The names of those students are in a pool. A lottery will take place this weekend to determine which of them will get to watch that debate in person. Of course, Fox 13 News will stay on top of this developing story, of course, impacting Utah and the national political landscape ahead of Election Day. Watch the very latest developments on the Fox 13 social media pages on Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, or your favorite streaming devices, and of course at fox13now.com.
Tomorrow, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will hold its 190th semi-annual General Conference. Similar to April's conference, each session will be broadcast from a small auditorium on Temple Square. Only those asked to speak or pray will attend in person. The music has been pre-recorded. The conference consists of 5 sessions that span over 2 days, including a women's session tomorrow evening. Each session will be broadcast on the church's website, the church's social media pages, and on television. The first session begins tomorrow morning at 10.
Unusual to have it be conference weekend and not have those crowds streaming downtown. You know, the second time now, quite a thing.
Yeah, how about that? We have a mix today. We have a little bit of cloud cover, but we also see some blue skies as you look from our Intermountain cam. These clouds that have come in today in the northern and parts of eastern Utah will dissipate overnight, so we should have pretty much clear skies throughout the weekend. It's 75 degrees right now. That's a little more than what we should be for this time of the year. 71 would be our average high. We thought we might get up to 79. We didn't quite get there. I think 78 so far was our high today, so we're actually starting to come down a little bit. The record high was 88, by the way. Some other temperatures around the area. We have Ogden at 75, Park City 68 degrees, one better at Evanston 69, Tooele 72 degrees right now. Taking a look at our satellite loop, you can see these clouds kind of funneling in throughout the day because the ridge of high pressure just kind of cuts off right as you slice through the eastern part of the state. So we are going to see things kind of definitely settle down a little bit with this ridge. It will flatten, it will dissipate a little bit, and we're hoping throughout the next week we'll see that happen to the point where we can start seeing some actual weather systems actually come into the state of Utah. Overnight tonight we're going to see temperatures dropping down to about 53 degrees because it should clear out. We should see nice clear conditions, and then as we head for the weekend we'll see what happens with this high pressure ridge, and it's going to be a good weekend. It's just going to be a little bit warmer than normal. We'll take a look further down the road and have the 7-day forecast coming up for you.
Thanks so much, Dave. Still ahead, new developments in the Breonna Taylor saga, including a move that isn't typically done in cases like these. We'll explain.
The city manager in Harriman has been fired. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Adam Herbetz is getting answers about what happened.
And there's a big buzz happening at the Salt Palace. Fox 13 News gets an inside look at something being done that will ultimately help the environment in downtown Salt Lake. Welcome back. In national news, hours of grand jury proceedings in the case of Breonna Taylor have now been made public.
The testimony comes more than a week after jurors chose not to bring charges against Louisville police officers for her death. Those officers had a no-knock warrant, but say they announced themselves anyway.
We knocked on the door, said police, waited, 10, 15 seconds. Okay. Knocked again, said police, waited even longer.
They later opened fire at Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, who first fired at them, claiming he did not know the men were police. Taylor was killed in that gunfire. The decision not to charge the police officers sparked nationwide protests calling for an end to police brutality and justice for Breonna Taylor.
Well, for the firefighters working to control the glass fire in California's Sonoma and Napa counties, two larger forces are now working against them. Forecasted high heat and strong winds.
It's absolutely devastating, and heartbreaking, the destruction that I have seen, the people that I know that have lost their homes and their livelihoods.
The glass fire, as it's called, is one of the two major wildfires still out of control in Northern California. It's more than 60,000 acres and just 6% contained right now. When combined with the Zog fire in Shasta County, more than 100,000 acres have burned. And those fires continue.
Stocks closed down on Wall Street today, but things weren't as bad as they looked overnight. The Dow lost 134 points, which is much less than the more than 400 points its futures tumbled after President Trump tested positive for COVID-19. The Nasdaq lost 251, the S&P fell 32. Ahead, more changes for some students in the Canyon School District. What families need to know.
And we'll show you one mom and pop shop in Sugar House doing everything they can to survive this pandemic.
Even in the best of times, small businesses in Utah face unique challenges trying to stay in business and competitive.
It can be tough. Ashley Sampson found the pandemic has only magnified those challenges.
In the heart of Sugar House, Utah.
Rolling pies.
There's a place that uses perhaps more sugar than anywhere.
Eclairs, make a lot of eclairs.
I turned 92 on the 6th of August. My brother Bob, he's
I'm 87.
For almost 6 decades, Bob and Al have been showing up to work at Carol's Pastry Shop.
I get up every morning at 5:30 and get down here about 6, quarter after 6.
We have a lousy or terrible retirement plan in this bakery.
The co-owners mix together like peanut butter and jelly.
We get along good together. We never have an argument and brotherly love.
They say baking is in their blood.
My dad came over to this country in 1924, and this was the bakery.
The two were pulled apart when Uncle Sam came calling.
1950, I got drafted for the Korean War as it just started. So I pulled Bob out of high school. He took over, and when I came home, then he left for 2 years. We were nice-looking soldiers, weren't we?
They've seen their fair share of change.
And there isn't any bakeries, little bakeries open up anymore.
Since March, it's not big box stores making business tough. It's a new, bitter ingredient.
Well, just after that virus hit.
Yeah. When we stayed open, we really haven't closed. We never closed, but it was slow.
Owning a small business is tough, but COVID-19 is making it even harder.
We depend on all that business, just what comes in the door. The big orders, we don't have many more.
They hope to keep making eclairs and fresh donuts for as many years as they can.
That's what keeps you going, is to have something to do.
Now, the next generation is pitching in.
Granddad and great uncle, I think that's how that works. It's really nice being with Grandpa.
Bob and Al want to keep Carol's Pastry Shop in the family.
All our customers say, you can't quit. We don't know what we'd do. You can't quit. You can't close this bakery up.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, it's hard to tell what's going to happen even day by day now.
For now, the brothers plan on showing up every day.
COVID's not going to stop these guys.
Like my father says, you put in good ingredients and good stuff in the bakery in it, you'll always get a good product out of it. We've always used the best there is.
In Sugar House, I'm Ashley Sampson reporting.
Well, that was so nice. Now we've got to run out to Carol's Pastry Shop, right?
Yeah, it looks delicious.
Yeah, it does. All right, it's no secret we haven't had much rain this year, and a map released today by the Utah Department of Natural Resources shows that 93% of Utah is experiencing severe drought conditions.
Now, in addition, 87% of the state also qualifies as extreme drought conditions. No areas in Utah were labeled severe or extreme at this time last year. As winter approaches, specialists are asking for your help to conserve water.
Instead of watering more to compensate for those drought conditions, we can water the same as we usually would, or even less, and just accept the fact that this is a drought year and our vegetation isn't going to be lush and green like it usually is.
Even with a solid snowpack this winter, lakes and reservoirs might have lower than normal water levels as the ground soaks up moisture to compensate for a dry summer.
And we are down several inches as far as rainfall for this year.
And I wish you were talking about rain coming our way, but it's just not in there, is it?
Well, not in the next, let's just say next week, why don't we? It's going to be a while, but there's some signs that we may see some change in our weather pattern coming up next weekend. Take a look out at our old mill cam. You can see a lot of the clouds have now dissipated, so we are seeing things clearing out overnight. So we are going to have a fairly clear night out there. It's 75 degrees right now. It's still, we're calling it partly cloudy, but it's pretty clear in some spots. 16% is where our relative humidity is at, and our winds are out of the northwest at 7 miles per hour. Normally for today we'd be up to 71 degrees. We passed that by several degrees. I think we topped off at about 78, maybe 79. The record high was set back in 2010. That was 88 degrees, so definitely shy of that. Taking a look at some other temperatures around the area. Park City 68 degrees, Evanston 69, Lehigh 74, and Provo 73 degrees reported at 5 o'clock. Here's our surface map, and you can see that high pressure ridge still in place, still locked in. We're seeing some little disturbances come by, and we did have those clouds for northern and northeastern, in particular northeastern Utah today, and parts of central eastern parts of the state. Now, when this ridge kind of flattens out and kind of fizzles, that's going to open the door for more of the California smoke. We've been lucky. It's kind of a double-edged sword. It keeps the smoke away, but it also keeps all the precipitation and clouds and activity away. way. As you can see, we're just on the eastern perimeter of that ridge of high pressure, and it is breaking down a little bit. And we're hoping it's the beginning of a trend that makes us hope toward the next weekend we might see a significant change in our weather pattern. Here you see the one disturbance that just kind of came through today, and all the whiter shades represent the drier air. And as we move this into motion, you can see that dry air just close right back in on us as that ridge of high pressure still remains, and hopefully it will break down by the end of next week. In the meantime, because it has been so dry, we've been just talking about that, there are some fire weather warnings. There is a fire weather warning in effect for the area shaded in pink until 10 o'clock tonight, but the winds are fairly calm, so we don't expect a whole lot of wind activity to shake things up too much tonight. And again, the winds will settle down as we go through the evening hours. So again, at 10 o'clock, that should be lifted, if not before. Taking a look at our hour-by-hour temperatures through the day along the Wasatch Front or for the next several hours, we'll see things dropping down to around 62 or so by 10 o'clock tonight, and then it'll keep going down to somewhere around mid-50s by the time we get up tomorrow morning. 77 is what we're looking for a high tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a couple of degrees warmer, because we are going to see the direct sunshine as opposed to today. We had some of the cloud cover out there that deflected a lot of that light and heat. Looking at the 7-day forecast for southern Utah, you can see the next 3 days we're going to see things very much the same than the day before, with temperatures in the mid-90s, and that kind of holds all the way through next week. Hopefully, as we get toward the weekend, we'll see some things shake out a little bit. And temperatures, though, still staying in those 90s until we get to the end of the week, and then we're going to see temperatures drop just a little bit as we head into next weekend. For northern Utah, we're going to see temperatures still hanging around that 80-degree mark all the way through the weekend. We should see a lot of sunshine. Might have a few clouds come in with another little disturbance that comes by, very similar to one that we dealt with today. And then as we move forward from there, we see temperatures still hanging in the 80s, with a normal high this time of year being 71. And maybe again by next weekend we'll start to see things change up a little bit. We're keeping our eyes on that. Guys?
All right, Dave, thanks so much. Is medical advice easier to take when it's in a rap song? We'll introduce you to the doctor who's dishing it out.
Also, you can help NASA find new planets. We're going to show you how straight ahead.
It's the Halloween season, and Airbnb wants you to take part in what they call the spookiest Airbnb stay on Earth.
I'm sure some of us had these experiences, and maybe, I don't know, it wasn't what you were going for. But this is all in design. Residents can book an Airbnb in a tiny house in the town of Hell, Michigan. The self-proclaimed mayor of the unincorporated town is offering his mayor's lair for 3 nights in October. Looks kind of fun and festive. He says you can be mayor for the day at the cost of roughly $31, as in October 31st. There's a fire pit, outdoor movie screen for scary movies, a Queen of the Damned bed, and a Gothic sitting area.
NASA needs your help to find new planets. The agency just launched Planet Patrol, a citizen science project to find new planets. It needs volunteers to help sift through tons of images collected by TESS. That is the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite. Sometimes the planet-searching satellite's huge data set returns false positives. They need discerning eyes on the images to weed out the imposters that the computers cannot. Talk about job security. Humans helping with similar programs have resulted in newly discovered planets.
Your back is like, whoa. You hold it with your hands and you lift it like, whoa. This leg you tuck it, lay on top. If your low back's hurting, your pain will stop, stop, stop. Now your back's not hurting.
Oh boy, this chiropractor's advice on TikTok is going viral. I think you may see why. Dr. Jordan Estrada from Sugar Land, Texas says he got the idea for it when he was quarantined for 2 weeks back in March. In addition to a little fame and more than 900,000 followers, the No Pain, More Gains TikTok handle has brought more business to his clinic's national chain.
Ahead in our next half hour, the city manager of Harriman is suddenly out of a job. We'll explain why.
Plus, heavy damage to a meat packing plant in Tremonton that forced people from their homes earlier today. Details on how that started. this hour, the city of Harriman has announced the sudden firing of its city manager. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Adam Herbetz has been looking into this one, and he joins us from Harriman City Hall.
Well, my understanding is this was a closed-door meeting that went into the late hours of the night, Wednesday night and Thursday morning. So far, the city council has not given us a reason why they decided to terminate city manager Brett Wood, but we do have a few clues. Before going behind closed doors, there was an argument about whether it was even appropriate to do so, and the agenda for that meeting states they would be discussing, quote, the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of city manager Brett Wood. This is a man who has worked for the city for more than 20 years. Some people affectionately referred to him as Mr. Harriman. One of the assistant city managers tells us he was not fired for any type of criminal activity or misconduct, but even she doesn't know more than that.
With that many years of service, Brett Wood had a lot of relationships throughout the city, and so staff are definitely somber at this time, but ultimately our goal is just to continue with city business and providing the best service that Harriman City is known to provide.
We have gone into closed session without a freaking clue about what we're going to session every single time since I have been elected.
I'm going to ask you to...
That is absolute absurdity.
We are hoping to get more information next week about why the city council decided to take that action in a closed session. So far, Brett Wood has not commented. Reporting in Harriman, Adam Herbetz, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A report from Kaiser Health News says thousands of minks at Utah fur farms have died in the past 10 days because of coronavirus. They say this has forced 9 sites in 3 counties to quarantine. The state veterinarian says people don't appear to be at risk from the outbreak. Dr. Dean Taylor also says the COVID-19 infections likely spread from workers to the animals at the mink ranches.
A group that calls itself Utah Citizens Alarm is back on Facebook. Casey Robertson and J.C. Carpenter appeared on the group's Facebook page today and said it was good to be back. The Facebook blocked the page in August and said it was taking action against accounts tied to anarchist groups that support violent acts against protesters. Robertson says the group was wrongly described as white supremacist or a racist group. He says it has only tried to keep the peace during protests.
A massive fire broke out at a meat processing plant in Tremonton early today. It forced evacuations of nearby homes for several hours. Workers at West Liberty Foods were in a boiler room at about 5:30 a.m. when something sparked and some oil caught fire.
We did have a concern of 50,000 pounds of ammonia. It was just inside another door. We did a defensive attack with a lot of water. So we evacuated the road to the west of the building, both sides of the road, all the residents for a couple hours, just in concern of the ammonia, of explosion or a leak.
3 employees were treated for minor burns to their hands and faces. A few personal cars were destroyed. Early damage estimates total $1.5 million. This will impact about 350 employees. A Corner Canyon High School teacher returns home after a weeks-long battle with COVID-19, including time in the intensive care unit.
Yeah, a lot of people were concerned about her well-being. Fox 13's Erin Cox spoke with Shari Jensen's daughter today to get an update on her recovery. She joins us live now from Sandy. Erin.
That's right, Bob and Amy. Shari Jensen, though she has returned home from the hospital, her fight against COVID-19 is far from over. In fact, her daughter says they have quite the long road ahead of them. The Jensen home has seen a lot of tears in the last few weeks. But Tuesday, they were happy tears.
So Mommy can sit down. Things are going really good. The nurse is really pleased with how she's doing.
Shari Jensen, known as Mama J, was hospitalized September 16th. Her daughter says she tested positive for COVID-19 after exposure from another teacher at Corner Canyon High School.
So it was the most difficult experience we've ever had to go through. So she was on a ventilator on her birthday.
They couldn't celebrate then, but the community has lined the streets with ribbons, and her students have been sending messages of support, something she will need to get through her recovery.
She's requiring oxygen still. She has physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy coming in. She has home health nurse coming in every day. As a family, we have to take her vitals 3 times a day.
Shari's daughter, Talisha, says doctors expect her mom to eventually recover 90%, but her lungs will never be the same.
She's pretty raspy, very quiet. If she overdoes it, you can definitely tell her voice starts to get a little weaker.
Shari still has a hard time swallowing, but even at this stage of her recovery, she's already planning for when she can go back to school.
She wants to go back to school. That is her #1 goal now, is she just wants to get back in teaching.
In the meantime, they're grateful to have their Mama J back. Now tonight there is a football game at Corner Canyon High School, and Shari says this will be the first football game since she had coronavirus. Her daughter says Mama J is their biggest supporter. Live in Sandy, Aaron Cox, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Aaron, thank you. Now, the Canyons District has announced the school where Mama J was teaching, Corner Canyon High School, is one of 4 schools that will go to an all-online learning schedule for the next 2 weeks. Corner Canyon, Alta, and Brighton High Schools and Draper Park Middle School are all online because of the spike in COVID-19 cases. Starting next Monday, the rest of the Canyons District will be on what they call a blended learning schedule. 4 days in person, in class. Fridays will be online, giving teachers a day to wrap up their school week and prepare for the next week.
The feedback has been mixed, frankly. We have a lot of students who thrive in the online learning environment, and then we have a lot of students who really struggle. And so, the aim here is to continue moving forward to providing students the best possible education in a very challenging situation.
The district is hoping that during the 2 weeks that 4 of their schools are online and students are away, they can stop any spread among the students and have a clean slate when they come together again.
All right, starting off October, these are those days where you have to get the heater on in the morning and then the air conditioning on later in the day.
Yeah, it's just that transitional period, Amy. But I really wish we could, get some wet weather out there, but we're having a hard time with it. As you look at our Oquirrh Mountain Cam, you can see parts of the valley are still under some cloud cover, the high clouds there. 75 degrees in both Ogden and Salt Lake City, Provo 73 degrees, and the winds are pretty calm out there right now. So where we should have been today for a daytime high was 71, so we've been definitely running high. We had 80s for the last couple of days, and we're going to pretty much stay on that 80 line, 80, 81, 82. Tomorrow will probably be the cooler day of the 2 days in the weekend. As you look at some other temperatures around Park City's down to 66 already, 74 at Lehigh, and as I said, 73 at Provo, I believe. Taking a look at our satellite loop, you can see we're seeing a little bit of that cloud cover coming through, but it's also dissipating now, and things are starting to clear out as all of this continues to move on through. We will see a series of these little disturbances. The next one will be Sunday night into Monday, and it will probably do exactly what this one did. It didn't do much. It just brought in some cloud cover, no precipitation hitting the ground. Tonight, clearing, still cool overnight, 53 degrees, and then tomorrow we'll warm things up a little bit from today, but not too much, and then hopefully we'll certainly find some changes by the time next weekend rolls around. Full forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Thanks, Dave. There is a new warning from the Utah Department of Environmental Quality ahead of waterfowl season. What they're saying when we come back. Waterfowl season is quickly approaching, but before you go out, make sure you're aware of the dangers and signs of harmful algal blooms. Even though those blooms are more common in warmer months, they can still present when temperatures start to drop. If you're hunting with a dog, be sure to keep the dog away from areas with harmful algal blooms. If your dog does come in contact with one, take them to the vet as soon as possible.
Any waterfowl or any fish You want to make sure that you clean those really well and you discard the guts. So just make sure that you're not bringing any of those toxins into your body when you consume those animals.
For more information on harmful algal blooms and which bodies of water they may be in, go to fox13now.com.
Utah law requires any church that wants to serve sacramental wine to have a liquor license, but it can also be a bit of a bureaucratic mess. A Lutheran church described the process on Fox 13's Utah Booze News podcast. The minister must undergo a criminal background check, be fingerprinted, and submit floor plans of their church showing where any wine would be sold. And city councils have to approve it before the DABC does. But the pastor of Taylorsville Prince of Peace Church does not feel it infringes on his religious freedom. You can hear more about this on Utah Booze News and Alcohol Policy Podcast. It's produced by Fox 13 News and the Salt Lake Tribune. You can subscribe today on any major podcast platform.
A new addition here at the Salt Palace has people buzzing. We'll show it to you coming up.
And later in sports, BYU has a new opponent, not to mention a good one in Provo. Tonight, we'll have a preview with La Tech, and the battle to replace Tyler Huntley at Utah is on. Kyle Whittingham talks his new quarterback race in a bit.
Thanks so much for joining us this evening. The Salt Palace has something that you've probably never seen before at a convention center.
They've installed several beehives. Fox 13's Ben Winslow shows us why from the Salt Palace.
A big convention center is not the place you'd think of for a beehive, but it's an effort by staff here at the Salt Palace to return a bit of nature to an urban area.
We think that it's very fitting for the state of Utah, as it is the beehive state.
Tucked away behind the Salt Palace Convention Center near the Japanese Garden.
It's a moment of calm.
These beehives.
We thought it was a fun idea at first.
The bees were put here by Salt Palace staff as part of an effort by the convention center to increase its environmental sustainability.
One of the pledges is green space, which is all about bringing the natural world to the urban world a little bit, to the business world.
Bees are also facing trouble in the world right now.
Bees in general are struggling a little bit, right? Scientists are still a little bit unsure about what's happening, but bee populations are declining. And this is a really big problem because humans rely on over 1/3 of our food supply comes from bees. And so what we're hoping to do is show the importance of bees in our natural world.
The bees here at the Salt Palace can travel up to 40 miles a day in search of food.
A lot of people in the valley probably seen a Salt Palace bee buzzing around for sure.
Like many places, the Salt Palace has struggled during the COVID-19 pandemic. There's no conventions. But many staffers keep an eye on these busy bees and look to them as inspiration on how to be resilient.
Well, our bees are pretty new. We've only had them for a year and a half, about. So we're excited as our industry really gets up and moving again after the virus stuff. We'll be doing a lot of that.
So you may be wondering what happens to the honey. Well, it'll be harvested and given to some employees here at the Salt Palace and the company that handles catering. At the Salt Palace, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Honey from the bees at the Salt Palace. Couldn't get more Utah than that.
No, it couldn't. I wonder if it'll have a little salty flair to it. What they're adding in there, what else it'll be. Pretty cool, though. That sounds great.
Yeah, good weather to be a bee, I suppose. I don't know. I don't personally know any bees, but it's not bad outside. Take a look. Here's a shot from Zion National Park, and really, we haven't had anything in the way of precipitation. We do see some high and some mid-level clouds out there across the state, but it's really been a pretty nice day. Taking a look at our current conditions in Salt Lake, it's 75 degrees. Relative humidity is 16%, so it's pretty dry out there. Winds out of the northwest at 7 miles per hour. And as you look where we should be for this time of the year, would be 71 for a daytime high. We were already up to 78 earlier this afternoon. The record high was 88, set back in 2010, and your sun setting tonight at 7:07. Taking a look at some other temperatures, we have Park City at 66, Provo 73, Nephi 81 degrees. And here is our surface map. You can see that ridge ridge of high pressure that's just still there, still hanging in there, and it's going to continue to be there and dominate our weather for the weekend. And then we're going to see some little disturbances, just like the one that came by today. Brought in the cloud cover, didn't bring any precipitation that hit the ground, but we have a few more of these coming through. One on Monday night that might do exactly what this one did. It just kind of clipped the northeastern part of the state. It all kind of depends on where the center of that high pressure ridge decides it wants to be. But the good news is the models are showing that by the time we get to next weekend, this should all break down a little bit, clearing the way for some other storms and some other weather to actually move into our direction. The only bad thing about that is we could see more smoke filter in from the California wildfires. Here's the little disturbance that came through earlier today, and you can see as we move it into motion, the dry air fills right back in. So at least through the weekend, we're not going to see any chances of precipitation at all, and we probably won't see much chance next week as well until things change a little bit. So that in mind, we do have a fire weather warning in effect for the area shaded in pink until 10 o'clock tonight, but things are settling down wind-wise, so the concern is not too great at this moment. As you look at our air quality, taking a little bit of a dive, going downward a little bit in the last couple of days because we have been kind of locked under this stagnant ridge of high pressure, if you will. Most people still in the fairly good category. Overnight lows tonight dropping down into the low to mid 50s for most people along the Wasatch Front. Some of the outlying areas, Park City, 40 degrees for an overnight low. Logan, about 41. Evanston dropping down to 44, and a little bit further south, St. George down to 60 degrees for an overnight low. Now tomorrow's highs could be a little bit warmer than they were today, depending on how much sunshine we have, but we should wake up to clear skies, and it looks like we'll keep our clear skies throughout the day. So we may see temperatures a little warmer than 77 is what we have there along the Wasatch Front. Could be 79, could even be 80 degrees, but you get the point. It's going to be warmer than it should be for this time of the year. Southern Utah, 7-day forecast. We have a lot of the same day after day after day. Temperatures in the mid-90s until we get to Thursday. Then they start dropping just a little bit by the time we get to next weekend. And again, hopefully we'll see things change by then. And then as we go through northern Utah, you can see lots of sunshine for the weekend. Another system kind of grazing by on Monday. Might not do much in the way of cloud cover at all. And temperature-wise, it doesn't do much either. And we don't see things really start to dip down until next Friday. So hopefully things will start to change this week. And by the time next weekend rolls around, we'll see a complete shift in our weather pattern and start to see some action.
After outscoring their first two victims 103-10, BYU will host their annual pre-conference Friday night game tonight. Louisiana Tech of Conference USA is the opponent, a team that, as Fox 13's Andrea Urban explains, has been putting up a lot of points themselves.
Yeah, Morgan, Louisiana Tech is coming into tonight off a 28-point victory. But high-scoring games aren't new to the Cougars. Through postponing games and still trying to build a 2020 schedule and even the dominating wins, head coach Kalani Sitake said that the adversity has made this team stronger.
I've always loved these guys, and being head coach here has been awesome for me to be a part of this program. But just to see our guys lead the way and the number of veterans on our team has been really helpful throughout the process. Since March, you know, these guys have been well led by the players, and thankful that I have great coaches helping mentor them along the way too. So it's been a lot of growth during this time facing adversity, but it's made us a lot closer as a group.
Kickoff is at 7 o'clock tonight. Now, still no fans in the stands, but the momentum is not slowing down for BYU. At LaVell Edwards Stadium, Andrea Urban, Fox 13 Sports.
Thanks, Andrea. On a side note, La Tech is Karl Malone's alma mater. Sticking with the Cougars here as Tom Homo continues to add to the schedule. San Diego State was originally on the 2020 slate in November and will now visit Provo for a chilly one at LaVell Edwards Stadium on Saturday, December 12th, to put BYU at 10 games total, minus the Army game that is yet to be rescheduled. Tom Homo did a Q&A with the media today where he summed up what it's been like to throw a schedule together on the fly, one that continues to evolve to this day.
I just think it's an asterisk year in scheduling. It's just, there's so many rules that were broken now, not legal rules, but you just need so much assistance. You need a lot of people taking some risks with you, risks with them. These games are scheduled out so far in advance that even if I learned something, I probably wouldn't be able to change it till 2030.
Yeah, I hear you. With the Utes ready to ramp up practices again, we can start talking about Tyler Huntley's potential replacement. Huntley has been Utah's starting quarterback for the past 3 seasons, and Kyle Whittingham says at this point, it's a 3-man race between Cam Rising, Jake Bentley, and Drew Lisk.
All 3 on equal ground and equal footing, and getting the same amount of reps until we can get it to 2, and then when we get it to 1, then like I said, we'll give the majority of the reps to whoever that guy is.
We'll be right back.
Well, as we look east, the sun is setting in the west. This really is a gorgeous shot, and that crane indicates, those cranes I should say, because there's more than one, indicates economic prosperity. Wouldn't you agree, Amy?
It looks like they're building or working on something in the city there, right?
Yep.
Skyline ever changing.
It is beautiful out there today. Now, if you missed any of this newscast, you can, of course, catch the replay right now on Fox 13's app for Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. Just search KSTU in your app store.
We're so glad you joined us tonight for Fox 13 News live at 5. We're going to see you back here for Fox 13 News at 9.
Enjoy your dinner.